Hello and welcome again. Today we're gonna recap a well-known action movies, Rambo's full series, The 5 Parts. That tells the story of one of the greatest American fighters and how he got through his life after the Vietnamese War to get his life since 1980 till 2019. Now let's get to it. The movie begins in 1980 with John Rambo, the ex-Special Forces soldier who is back again to his homeland. Rambo was looking for his buddy Dilmar. Rambo stopped by a poor house, asking the women there if they know anything about Dilmar. They asked him how he knew him, so Rambo showed them a note Dilmar wrote to him when they both were in Vietnam. One of the ladies then told Rambo that Dilmar died the last year, as he suffered from cancer. The lady said that was the only thing he had from the war, as they exposed to many chemicals during the war. Rambo was shocked hearing all of this. He gave the lady a pic of her son when they were in the military together. The scene then changed to the mayor Will Teasel. The guy was so rude and almost knew everyone in the town. Unfortunately, Rambo reached Teasel's town not knowing where to go. Teasel saw him standing in the streets with his weird backpack, so he asked him if he needed anything. In the beginning, Rambo ignored him, didn't answer Teasel's questions. That irritates Teasel even more, asking Rambo why he is so quiet. So Teasel insists on giving Rambo a ride. Rambo didn't get many options, so he accepted the offer, thinking Teasel is just being nice to him. In the car, Teasel was curious about what brought Rambo to his town. He became more suspicious when Rambo said he was lost and tried to go to a different city. On their way, Rambo finally talked, saying he is hungry, so the mayor promised him to stop at the nearest restaurant. Rambo then noticed the mayor is getting him out of the town, so he asked Teasel why he would do that, as he is an American citizen who has the right to go wherever he wants. But the mayor said that this is his town, and he is the only one who decide who can stay and who have to leave. Teasel then dropped Rambo out of the town, warning him not to even think to get back again. Rambo stayed quiet and didn't say a word, watching the mayor car leaving the place. To make things even worse, it started raining, so Rambo had to get himself a shelter as soon as possible. There was no any town near to him, but Teasel's town, so he turned back to it only to find Teasel blocking his way. Rambo stayed quiet as usual. He only ignored the mayor, who get too mad and tried to grab Rambo by his shoulder, but Rambo got loose easily, throwing Teasel's hand away. Teasel took the advantage and asked Teasel to put his hands on the car and rapidly arrested him. Rambo was still shocked, but he didn't give any reaction. He went to the police station with Teasel, carrying his bag with him. Once they were in the police station, the officers started to inspect Rambo's bag. They found a knife in it, so that was more than enough to keep Rambo locked in. They even bullied him as he stinks, asking him to take a shower. As a Special Forces soldier, Rambo started to check every possible exit way in the station. When he saw the bars, he got disturbing memories, as he was arrested in Vietnam also, where he was treated badly and got tortured. The officer then started to ask Rambo about his name, but Rambo didn't want to talk. That made the officers so mad, and they were ready to make him talk, no matter how. Officer Galt then started to threaten him. Another officer tried to punch Rambo, but he stopped him. Galt finally could get Rambo's name out of the army badges. He knew that he is John Rambo, not knowing what he is capable of. The officers then needed his fingerprint on their judicial minutes, but they couldn't force Rambo to do it, not even with using powers. Teasel saw enough to interact, asking Rambo to sing the papers. Otherwise, he would put him in jail for 3 months, so Rambo finally accepted to do it. That wasn't enough for Teasel officers, especially Galt, who insisted to humiliate Rambo, asking him to take off all his clothes to clean him. They then saw the wound scars all over his body, so Officer Mitch started to ask questions about these scars, but as usual, Rambo didn't answer. So Galt surprised him with a strong hit on his back. Then they started to clean him with a firefighting water hose, using high-pressure water to harm Rambo. Then Galt asked them to shave Rambo's hair, but only then the bad memories from Vietnam started to strike again, as they also were shocking him with their sticks. That made Rambo so mad, so he started to attack the officers one by one. For the first time, Rambo showed them his really strength. Not any soldier could stop him, as he was much stronger than all of them. With much martial experience, Rambo then started to run away from the station, while Galt was so frustrated by what happened, so he took his gun with him and decided to shoot Rambo, only to find Teasel stopping him from shooting. As the streets are full of citizens, he was so sure that they would get a better chance to get Rambo again. Teasel then rushed quickly to his car, started chasing Rambo, who was using all his powers to get away faster. When Teasel couldn't arrest Rambo, he contacted the station asking for backup immediately. Teasel then loses control of his car and get off the cliff, but Teasel didn't lose hope and continued chasing Rambo, who gets into the woods where he found some stuff that he used as clothes. The backup then arrived, with many police officers with dogs and even a helicopter. Teasel then told everybody to follow Rambo's traces using the dogs, but he insisted insisted to get him alive. That put Rambo in a very dangerous situation, so he started to climb the cliff quickly before getting arrested. Then he found himself in a narrow corner, so he decided to start going down the cliff. But Galt in the helicopter spotted him and tried to kill him, but he couldn't cause the helicopter was moving. Rambo then had to jump over the cliff. He fell to the woods, injuring his arms, but he was still alive after all. Galt didn't lose hope and kept shooting at Rambo's body, but Rambo took a huge tree as a barrier to protect himself. He then knew that he would have been killed if the helicopter was in the air, so Rambo threw a hard rock towards the helicopter, causing a huge damage. That made the pilot lose control, so Galt felt off the helicopter, hitting the rocks badly. Rambo went to the spot where Galt fell. He found him dead with a damaged skull. Rambo then took Galt's clothes and gun. Then he escaped the whole place, getting to a spot where he can heal his wounds. Teasel then tried to contact Galt, who was already dead, so he tried to find Rambo at any cost. Finally, he could spot him, but Rambo told them all that one of their men is now dead, and it wasn't his fault. Rambo tried to tell them that he didn't want any other troubles, but Teasel was taken away by the fact that one of his officers was killed. So he asked all his officers to start shooting, as he now want to kill Rambo. But again, Rambo could get himself a shelter again, leaving Teasel so frustrated as he won't even get Galt's body out of the cliff. As the weather conditions wasn't suitable, there was a bad tornado coming, so the officers didn't accept Teasel's orders to keep following Rambo. During this argument between the officers, Rambo took the advantage and shot the only dog that came closer to them, declaring a war with the whole police station. Teasel then refused to surrender and asked his officers to keep chasing Rambo, not paying enough attention to the tornado that would come any time. Unlike the police officers, Rambo knew this circumstances very well, as Vietnam's weather was always like this. Rambo started to stab Teasel's officers, killing them one by one, leaving Teasel without any other officer but him. While Teasel was walking around, suddenly Rambo get out of nowhere, putting the knife on his throat just to threaten him. Rambo then asked Teasel to leave him alone, otherwise he would give him a war he can't even imagine how hard it would be. After Rambo got loose, Teasel contacted the whole police backup officers, asking them to get an ambulance to help the injured officers. When the whole clash was over, the place turned into an attractive scene to TV news channels, as an ex-soldier beat the whole police station officers all alone. Teasel went back to his tent that he will use as a remote operations center. Suddenly, a military colonel entered the tent, introducing himself as Colonel Troutman. Troutman interrupted the officers who were talking about Rambo, saying that he was his commander officer back in Vietnam, saying that no one could ever beat him, and the only way to stay alive is to leave Rambo alone. Teasel asked Troutman to shut the hell up, saying it's now on his own to kill Rambo no matter what. Troutman, who was frustrated hearing this, asked Teasel to prepare enough bodies bags, as his men will all be killed soon. Back again to Rambo, who was alone in the jungle, but it seems that it wasn't a big problem for him. He was expert in such situations due to his time in Vietnam. Teasel then called Rambo on the radio channel, asking him to surrender and he will not kill him. But again, Rambo completely ignored him, as he was enjoying his meal and the fire he just ignited. When Teasel got no answer, he asked Troutman to call Rambo himself, as they were in the same war before. That was a smart plan, cause once Rambo heard Troutman's voice, he was shocked. Troutman used their army names to make Rambo feel comfortable, and told him his whole unit soldiers' names. But Rambo asked him not to talk about them again, cause all of them are now dead. Even his close friend Dilmar died last year. Troutman then asked Rambo to be smart and surround her, otherwise he would mostly die just like his friends. Rambo refused this offer too, and even ignored his ex-commander. After this chat, Teasel thanked Troutman, cause they could finally know Rambo's location based on his signal frequency. Next day in the morning, the whole police unit was on their way to Rambo's location, not realizing that Rambo was escaping. During his escape, Rambo crashed into a boy. At the beginning, he wanted to kill him, till he noticed that he is just a boy who was trying to haunt a wild animal. When the boy got loose, he told his parents about what just happened, so they tried to shoot Rambo. That was more than enough for Teasel's unit to know where Rambo is. They then surrounded the cave he was hiding inside, opening fire trying to kill him. Surprisingly, Rambo waited for them to reload their guns. Then he opened his fire too. Yet, Teasel knew that he had to do it the hard way. So he shouted at Rambo, saying he would only give him 3 seconds to surrender. Otherwise, he would shoot the whole cave with cannons. Of course, Rambo didn't surrender. so Teasel gave his soldiers the green light to start their heavy shooting. Once they bombed the cave, its rocks closed the entry, and the whole place was on fire. Once the soldiers saw what happened, they started to celebrate, as there was no way Rambo would still be alive. Teasel came closer, finding his soldiers in this situation, so he turned so mad, asking them to get himself the bloody dead body. Then they can do whatever they want to do. Troutman told Teasel that his soldiers ain't aware of what Rambo can do, and they are not professional. Teasel immediately asked his soldier to remove the rocks that blocked the entrance, and confirmed that Rambo is now dead. While Teasel and Troutman were in the bar, celebrating what they call a victory, Troutman warned him not to be so arrogant, as he doesn't know Rambo well. Meanwhile, Rambo was still alive, buried under the rocks. He then stood up, igniting a flare. That made him see where he can go. Finally, Rambo jumped out of the destroyed cave, making his way through the forest. When he was near the road, Rambo spotted military cars, so he jumped over one of these cars. Rambo then entered the cabin to throw the driver out of his car. The soldier then reported what happened to the police. Now Teasel knows that Rambo is still alive, so he ordered his officers to start chasing all over again. But Rambo could get rid of the police car, letting it to crash into another car and totally damage. Rambo was still driving when he saw that Teasel's forces are blocking his road, so Rambo turned the car and crashed into a gas station to set a huge fire. Rambo then got out of the car and got ready to fight back. Troutman went so mad, he even declared a curfew and asked the citizens not to leave their place. Troutman then paid Teasel a visit, but Teasel was so aggressive, telling Troutman that he was helping Rambo so far. But Troutman asked him to be reasonable, cause he didn't know anything about what Rambo was doing. Teasel got his gun, asking Troutman to stay away of this way. But for the last time, Troutman asked him to give it another thought. But Teasel was so sure he can kill Rambo easily. Back again to Rambo, who was between the gas station and the police station, waiting for Teasel to get out of the station, so he can get a clear shot. Rambo then started to shot the power supplies, so he cut the power cut of the whole place. Rambo had a great plan to distract the police officers, so he started shooting randomly. Then he went into the police station, setting fire to the guns, making a huge explosion. Finally, Rambo could see the mayor hiding behind the walls, so Rambo opened fire towards the whole police station. That gave Rambo enough time to make himself an entrance, getting inside the station. Teasel started shooting, but Rambo didn't got injured. He then shoot the roof where Teasel was there, injuring his feet. The whole roof collapsed, and Teasel went down to the floor where Rambo was standing with his gun. Just before Rambo killed Teasel, Troutman arrived, telling him that he already went too far, and killing a mayor will bring him more troubles, an unnecessary war. But it was so hard mission cause Teasel was still cursing Rambo, even though he was the underdog then. Rambo finally followed his ex-commander's orders. Just before leaving the police station, Rambo broke down, saying he went to fight on behalf of his own homeland. And what did he get? Nothing. People always provoke him for losing this war, not thinking about his sacrifice. He even told Troutman that he is unemployed, only cause people look at him as a coward who couldn't make his country proud at war. All what happened to him was just ignored by the society, all his friends who was killed, even when he'd been roughly tortured. No one can feel the pain he felt. During this breakdown, Rambo even revealed his deepest secrets, as he can't talk about these hard days to anyone. He used to imagine talking to his dead friends. As a military commander, Troutman understood Rambo's feelings. He then hugged Rambo, asking him to surrender, and he would try to reduce his prison time. Rambo finally accepted to do it. He wasn't so convinced though, but he had no other options, and he was really tired of all these wars and missions. Rambo 2, First Blood, Part 2, 1985. Years later, Rambo got imprisoned as he gave himself in. His days in the prison wasn't any better than his days in Teasel's town, nor Vietnam. The officers were so tough, making him cut hard rocks the whole day, and anyone who tried to get some rest was punished. Suddenly, an officer called Rambo saying he has a visit. Rambo couldn't guess who would visit him in the prison. Minutes later, he found out that Troutman was his visitor. Once seeing him, Rambo blamed it all on his ex-commander, as he was the one to convince Rambo to give himself in. Troutman gave Rambo a new offer, a mission to release U.S. military soldiers from Vietnam camps, as they are now captives. The real offer is, if Rambo succeeded, he would be released from prison. If he couldn't succeed, he doesn't need to think about the consequences, as he would be dead. Rambo didn't have enough options, so he agreed to get back to Vietnam, even if it was the last place on Earth Rambo wanted to visit. Hours later, a helicopter took Rambo away from the prison, dropped him in Thailand, the country that shares borders with Vietnam. There, Rambo met an officer named Eric, but Rambo didn't pay him much attention, and went to the commander commander's tent where he found Troutman. Troutman then introduced him to Murdoch, the operation commander of this wild mission. Murdoch was so surprised when he read Rambo's military files. He said he also got involved in the war, saying his unit. Then he started to explain the mission. It was a really easy one. All Rambo had to do was to take pictures of the captives so that they can reassure their families that their sons are still alive. So basically, there would be no need for any fighting. Murdoch started to show off, saying that his unit has all the technology any soldier would need, but Rambo disagreed with him, saying that humans are the most important weapon ever. Rambo then started to gather all the weapons he had, just in case he needed to use it. But before leaving, he told Troutman that he doesn't trust Murdoch, and the military unit that he claimed he joined wasn't in Vietnam. Troutman said that he will take care of everything, and just in minutes, he was in the helicopter heading back to Vietnam. On the ground, Murdoch wasn't really sure about Troutman choosing Rambo. He was worried that the war is still in his mind, but Troutman was so sure that Rambo is the right soldier to do it. While in the helicopter, Rambo finally got the green light to jump, but suddenly his parachute rope got hung in the plane, and Murdoch asked them to cancel the whole mission immediately. Rambo didn't care about all of this, and cut off his rope to get himself loose. What made him fell in the middle of the forest. That was terrible news to Murdoch and Troutman, as Rambo might be dead now. That wasn't true, cause somehow Rambo made it to survive that reckless jump and was on his way to the camp using his compass. Suddenly, he could feel someone spying on him, so he used his military experience to get that spy, only to know she is Sarah, his Vietnamese guide. Sarah then asked Rambo to follow her to get to the camp, as she told Rambo they need to go through the river as it's much safer. Sarah then took him to a gang that rent them a boat. Rambo didn't like their attitude, but he couldn't say a word. On their way, Rambo started to know Sarah even better. She is an ex-soldier's daughter who decided to follow in her father's footsteps. Back again to Murdoch, he decided to cancel the whole mission, as he thinks that Rambo was dead, no matter how hard Troutman tried to convince him not to do. Murdoch asked Troutman to join the forces that would pick Rambo out of Vietnam. Back again to Rambo, who finally could reach the camp. He and Sarah hid out of the camp in the woods. He then was surprised that a Vietnamese woman entered the camp, but Sarah told him that she is a hooker working with the army. Rambo then got ready to have a closer look on the camp to check on the US captives, but Sarah told him that wasn't a part of the plan. Rambo didn't listen to her, got his knife making himself an entrance. Now Rambo was inside the camp itself, and Sarah was waiting for him outside. Rambo was walking inside, aware of the danger he put himself in, so he was moving carefully, avoiding to get captured. Finally, he found the US captives. They were in a dirty cage that is full of insects and rats. Rambo then found one of the captives hanged out of the cage, so he set him free. That would be enough to ask Murdoch forces to engage with the Vietnamese army. During his way to escape the camp, Rambo had to kill 2 soldiers with his knife and arrows, cause that was the only silent way to kill them. Rambo got out of the camp to find a soldier almost killed Sarah, so he shoot him with an arrow and killed him. Then he took Sarah and the captive with him as they started running back to the river. In the morning, Vietnamese found the soldiers' dead bodies and the missing captives, so they decided to search the whole forest to get whoever do this. Meanwhile, Troutman and Eric were in the sky, as they will try to pull Rambo off this land. Rambo could finally reach the river with his 2 followers. They went back to the gang's boat, and they were on their way back to the forest, where Murdoch's forces should be. On the boat, Rambo was looking out. He suddenly spotted another boat coming closer. He immediately knew that the gang set them a trap. The gang then tried to tie Rambo and his friends, but quickly Rambo got out his knife and killed one of the gang. Then he got himself a fight, so he asked both Sarah and the captive to jump over the boat. When the other boat came closer and kept shooting, Rambo got the cannon, was with the gang, and blew up the other boat with 1 shot. Now he had to jump to the water to avoid the collision between the 2 boats. But Rambo was taken by the surprise that another one of the gang was trying to kill him. Rambo had no time to think, so he could finally reach his pocket knife and killed the Vietnamese with it, jumping into the water just second before the collision. Rambo took Sarah and the captive with him to the place Murdoch's people should pick him from, saying that he will have to protect only the captive, so he released Sarah as her mission was over. Rambo and the captive were on the run, but they were running in a low land. That gave the Vietnamese army the chance to spot them both. They started to shoot towards them, and Rambo was having a hard time escaping, and he was almost killed several times, while Rambo and the captive were under heavy fire. Troutman finally arrived just near them. He could clearly see Rambo with one of the captives. Troutman informed Murdoch of this great situation, saying that Rambo is still alive and he could get one of the captives with him. Murdoch was shocked hearing this, asked everybody in the room to leave him alone. When they all were out, he asked Troutman to retreat and leave Rambo over there. Troutman couldn't believe these instructions, saying they are only only a few meters far than them, and they can get to them easily. But Murdoch refused. When Troutman tried to disobey Murdoch's orders, Eric threatened to kill him so he couldn't do anything about it. Rambo was trying his best to stay alive with the captive. The Vietnamese soldiers were near Rambo, who thought that Troutman would help him, but suddenly the helicopter started to leave the location, and Rambo couldn't believe what just happened. While he was there, frustrated, the Vietnamese soldiers took the advantage and surrounded him. Rambo knew that he was in a bad situation and wouldn't be able to fight the whole army, so he threw his gun and surrendered, while Sarah was watching the whole situation. On the other hand, Troutman went to Murdoch's tent in anger, asking him why the hell would he ask them to retreat. Murdoch tried to blame it on Rambo for disobeying his orders, but Troutman didn't buy it. That made Murdoch talk about his real intentions, as the whole mission was to prove that there is no any US soldiers there. So Rambo should have took pictures of empty cages and get back. The problem was that these captives were there by Luke that day. Troutman couldn't talk after all what he heard, so he left the place with no other word. Back again to Rambo, who was immersed in a dirty lake, almost losing his consciousness, till the Russian army arrived at the camp with their leader Podolsky. Podolsky saw Rambo in this situation, so he asked his soldier to get him out of the lake, saying that he needs to have a quick chat with him. Rambo knew that Podolsky isn't that kind person, and that he will be tortured badly. In another room, Rambo was tied to a chair, and Podolsky asked him to talk his base in Thailand, telling them that he is now a captive. Rambo stayed silent and didn't say a word. In fact, Podolsky was trying to get him to talk, so he started to wave with a sharp knife. But that wasn't enough to frighten Rambo. Meanwhile, Sarah arrived at the camp as she told them she is the new hooker, so the soldiers let her in without asking her for any ID. In the meantime, Podolsky was so keen to let Rambo call his base, and when Rambo refused to even talk, he ordered Yushin to torture him. So they connected Rambo to a high-voltage wires and started to torture him without any mercy. But Rambo didn't talk. Now Podolsky had another mean plan to get him talk. He read the whole conversation between Troutman and Murdoch, letting Rambo know that Murdoch abandoned him, and he is now sacrificing his life to protect such a guy. But also, this plan didn't work with Rambo. So the last try with him was to bring the captive he set free earlier. Yushin told Rambo he would take off his friend's eye if he didn't talk to the base. The captive asked him not to talk or betray his country, but it was too late cause Rambo agreed to talk to save his friend. Meanwhile, Sarah was going through the camp. She even killed a couple of soldiers as she tried to know where Rambo was. Rambo then started to contact the base, where Murdoch tried to look nice to him, promising him to do his best to get him out of the place. But Rambo said he will take his revenge and will kill him if he can. Once Rambo ended the call, he immediately started to punch the soldiers. With the help of Sarah, he could get out of the place. Yet, there were so many soldiers waiting for him outside, so he grabbed a gun and opened fire to kill anyone who tried to get them, throwing bombs all over to cover their moves, till he finally could escape the camp with Sarah. Podolsky and the Vietnamese soldiers didn't accept the fact that only one guy beat them, so they gathered themselves to look for him all over the forest, using the full powers of their army, with helicopters looking after him, dogs and soldiers on the ground. But Rambo was so smart to know how to escape the place. He took Sarah to a hidden place, asking her to try to get to the river. Using his experience in Vietnam, Rambo could finally got to the river with Sarah. Back again to Troutman, who heard Rambo's chat with Murdoch. He then went to Murdoch asking him to send a helicopter to set Rambo free. But as usual, Murdoch refused, so Troutman told him he will go alone to get Rambo, and he doesn't need any help from a betrayal like Murdoch. Back again to Rambo, who was still on the river by Sarah, who told him that she want to escape the whole country. She didn't like the situation over there. Rambo told her that he would like to take her with him to the US, where they can live a better life. After kissing, Rambo asked her to start moving, as now they both have some hope. Once Sarah stand up to walk, a Vietnamese soldier spotted her and shot her immediately. Rambo couldn't believe what just happened. He was shocked to see his love died that soon, so he grabbed a gun and opened fire in a crazy way. Even if the soldiers were too much, Rambo kept killing them one by one till they started running away. Rambo then went to Sarah's dead body to bury her, getting ready to fight back whoever tries to stop him. Rambo went back to the forest, hiding himself in the wood. Of course, none of the soldiers could feel his existence. That gave Rambo a perfect chance to kill them without sound. He used his beloved arrows again to haunt them one by one. The soldiers knew they are fighting a devil, not just a human. Rambo wanted to kill as much soldiers soldiers as he can, and he wouldn't be able to do it with his bare hands, so he ran towards one of the Vietnamese villages, followed by an army of soldiers who thought they finally could trap him. But that was all Rambo's plan, who made a bomb with some oil and buried it in the middle of the woods. The misled soldiers went there thinking they finally arrested Rambo, only to find themselves in the middle of fire. Just before they all know what they need to do, Rambo was on a cliff having a great vision of all these soldiers' locations, and then he threw an explosive arrow that killed them all, making a huge explosion. The rest of the soldiers tried to escape the woods, but Rambo kept throwing his explosive arrows towards them. And to make things even worse, he started to destroy the vehicles. So now these soldiers will stay here for a while. Rambo then spotted the Vietnamese soldier who killed Sarah. He was so mad at him and decided to kill him no matter what. The soldier started shooting towards Rambo, who didn't even move, knowing he is out of his rifle's range. When the soldier ran out of bullets, he switched his guns, but Rambo went out with his explosive arrow in his bow, and without giving any chance to the soldier to escape, he exploded the hell out of him, taking Sarah's revenge. Before he could even move, Yushin arrived with a helicopter and tried to bomb the whole place, but Rambo noticed his plan and immediately started to run, then jumped to the water, leaving the whole place on fire. Yushin didn't stop at this point. He ordered a soldier to open fire on the water, but suddenly Rambo gets out of the water, killing this soldier. Then he entered the helicopter, having a strong and hard fight, but eventually Rambo could throw Yushin out of the plane to kill him. The only guy who left was the pilot, but Rambo threw him away too, as he knew how to fly with a helicopter. Now Rambo had the upper hand. He locked most of the Vietnamese soldiers in the woods, killed many others, so the camp was almost empty. So he went back to the camp where the US soldiers were locked in. Rambo opened fire towards the guards all over the place, taking them by surprise. They couldn't even stand to face the helicopter's weapon. The Americans couldn't believe what just happened. A soldier like them was fighting to set them free for the first time since they were captured. Rambo then landed the helicopter in front of the captive's cage, taking his gun with him to eliminate whoever tries to stop him. After setting all of the captives free, Rambo took them all in the helicopter, heading back to their base in Thailand. But there was an unpleasant surprise waiting for him. Podolsky attacked the helicopter with a fighting plane that is much stronger. He kept shooting Rambo's helicopter, so Rambo decided to keep moving to not get shot. But after many bullets, Podolsky thought he just killed Rambo, only to find the helicopter disappeared. After good search, Podolsky spotted the helicopter landing on the river, so he get closer carefully, finding Rambo seemed to be killed. When he got closer with his plan, and his plan was in the helicopter's shooting range, Rambo suddenly opened his eyes and shot a missile towards Podolsky, killing him and destroying his plane. Now Rambo could get rid of all his enemies except Murdoch, who was the main reason for all of this. In the meantime, Troutman told Murdoch about what happened, and that Rambo set all of the captives free. Murdoch was shocked and afraid cause he knows that Rambo would kill him, and when Rambo's helicopter arrived, Murdoch ran to his office. Everybody could see the look on Rambo as he was ready to kill Murdoch. Rambo even took his rifle in his hand. Eric tried to stop him, but Rambo was so aggressive and punched him strongly. Then he entered the technology equipment store and opened fire to destroy the whole place. Then he went to Murdoch's office, taking out his knife as Murdoch thought he will be killed. But Rambo didn't kill him, saying he will only leave him knowing he is a betrayal. Rambo then left the place, but Troutman went after him, telling Rambo that he is a hero and will have a Medal of Honor for all he did to the soldiers. Then Troutman told Rambo that he is now free, but asked him to join the army once again. Rambo refused, saying that he has no one left in the army and decided to live the way he wants. Rambo 3, 1988. After all what happened in Vietnam, you should have thought of Rambo as a national hero who never hesitates to help any US citizen, but unfortunately, that wasn't the truth. Rambo was still in Bangkok helping the citizens, making their lives even better. He used his muscles to help them building a new church, and so on. After a couple of years of the Vietnam mission that Rambo accomplished, Troutman himself went to Thailand to look for Rambo. First of all, he paid the US Embassy a visit, asking if anyone could see Rambo, but he didn't get any info about his location. Troutman even used Rambo's picture to check if anyone saw him, till he finally knew that Rambo is now involved in the illegal fighting games. So Troutman went to one of these rings that Rambo was fighting at. He stood there watching Rambo destroying his giant opponent. Rambo was fighting with sticks that is especially made for these fights, even if the opponent was strong and fast, but no one could ever stop Rambo from doing what he wants. This time, Rambo's motive was the gambling money that he collected after winning. Troutman was really pleased to see his soldiers still fighting like this, as Rambo is now stronger than before. Rambo is now the most famous fighter in all the underground fighting business, with a large fan base that is always trying to cheer him up. Troutman then tried to follow Rambo out of the ring, but he couldn't reach him cause of the crowd around the champ Rambo. The next day, Troutman asked Robert Robert, the ambassador, to go with him to meet Rambo. When they both arrived at Rambo's place, they found him busy in the construction work. Once Rambo saw his old friend and ex-commander, he quickly went to talk to him, not believing he was going all that way to Thailand to see him again. Rambo was so humble and told Troutman he would do anything to help people who help them. That is why he was using his gambling money to help build the church. Troutman then asked Rambo to listen carefully to Robert, who started to talk with Rambo about the situation in Afghanistan. There was a war between the Afghan army and the Russians. Robert started to show Rambo pictures of the Afghans suffering, as the Russians took the war to a completely different level. They had no mercy nor honor, bombing the poor villages, killing most of their farmers. Who lives after the war was taken to weird laboratories to be exposed to unhuman experiments. Rambo couldn't relate it's a war between two different countries that is not a US allies. So why would Robert show him those cases? Robert told Rambo that the Afghan army won't be able to do anything further. That is why they asked the US Army to help them. And they particularly want a Rambo to do a site tour to check the situation. Rambo didn't accept to do anything like this, telling both gentlemen that he had enough wars in the past, and he isn't ready for another one. Troutman insisted on asking Rambo to think about it again, but Rambo made up his mind and refused. No matter what Troutman said would change Rambo's opinion. So he told Rambo that he will personally visit Afghanistan with his team and won't bother Rambo any further. The scene then changed to Afghanistan, where Troutman and his team arrived. They were driving till Troutman asked them to stop. He was experienced enough to tell that something wasn't right. There was no mines nor any Russian forces. Before he could even retreat, a Russian helicopter came out of nowhere and started to shoot the US forces. Troutman couldn't do anything and was just watching what was going on as his men were brutally killed. Then the Russians asked the rest of them to drop their weapons, and they captivate the whole unit, including Troutman. After knowing what just happened, Robert went to talk to Rambo, asking him to help the US forces. Once Rambo heard that Troutman had been captivated, he accepted the mission and asked Robert to just give him a ride to Afghanistan and he will handle the rest. Before giving the green light to the whole mission, Robert told Rambo that this was an unofficial mission, meaning that he wouldn't be able to help him if he was in trouble. And of course, Rambo didn't care about that condition at all. Rambo could finally arrive at the Afghans' borders, and he went to the place where Robert asked him to meet with their man there. Rambo then looked for a man named Masakni, and he could finally find him. Masakni was running a weapons shop, so Rambo asked him for some supplies as he couldn't get to the country with any piece of weapon. Masakni was an arrogant guy who couldn't believe that Rambo could get his work done, but Rambo asked him to handle the weapons and help him. Masakni then told Rambo that the US forces are at a well-guarded Russian camp, and that camp is much different than other armies' camp. The scene then changed to the Russian camp, where General Zane was investigating Troutman, who looked so tired and weak. Zane was celebrating cause Troutman was his first ever American captive. He then told Troutman that the US got in a war that wasn't its war, and for that he would pay the price. Zane asked Troutman about the US missiles that America sent to help the Afghan army, but Troutman told him to go screw himself. That made Zane turn mad, asking his soldiers to torture Troutman. They started to choke him, hanging him in the wall, but Troutman was tough enough to stay silent and not say a word. Eventually, an Afghan spy entered the room, telling Zane that an ex-American soldier named Rambo had reached the borders, and he is now making a duo with another Afghan guy, and their mission was to set Troutman free. Of course, Troutman, me and you knew what that meant. Russia just brought itself a war that it wasn't ready for. But Zane, on the other hand, didn't feel any threat, and told Troutman that his unit is more than ready to destroy Rambo, who is theoretically just one person. Meanwhile, Rambo was on his way to a village that is near to the Russian camp. Masakni said that he knew over 10,000 soldiers who were ready to fight, but they just didn't have any weapons. Rambo then had a meeting with the leaders of the Afghan gang. One of them asked him to have a war with the Russian soldiers and showed him the way out to escape after the war. Rambo denied his idea, saying that he need to be quick, and all what he needs is only 4 men, and he will set Troutman free without a bullet. They didn't accept his idea, saying that won't be good enough. So Rambo decided to do it all on his own. Before Rambo started his plan, Masood, the leader of this gang, wanted to have a word with Rambo. He told him that they are ready to fight to the last breath, as they want to get rid of the enemy more than he does. The problem is, if they failed to do their mission, Russians will destroy the whole village as they did before. Masood added that they will help Rambo to get the US free, cause they are now their last hope to beat the Russians. But they can't be reckless and sacrifice their whole families, especially women. As the Afghans were Muslims, they told Rambo that they will go directly to heaven if they died while defending their homeland. That That made Rambo so sure they would help him and accepted to wait till they found the best plan. As now, Rambo had nothing else to do. Masakni invited him to join the others playing a very traditional game while riding a horse. The game was so simple as all the players needed to ride their horses, chasing a sheep to a circle, then catch the sheep, putting it to the next circle. Once the game started, Rambo got too keen to win it. He was doing so good till he fell off his horse, just before riding it again and eventually catching the sheep. Rambo won the game, leaving everybody else surprised. He really can do anything. Just after the game, 2 Russian helicopters appeared in the sky. They both started shooting the whole place, following the fighters back to their village where they were bombing it heavily. Rambo started to escape using his horse till he finally found a gun on the floor. So bravely, he went to the gun and started shooting towards one plane till he completely destroyed it. That made the other pilot shocked. How could only one soldier beat a helicopter? So he retreated back to his base. After this attack, Rambo was taken by the bloody view. Bodies were everywhere and there was many injured persons on the floor. Masood then went to Rambo asking him to take these injured people to the borders where they can get good care, otherwise they would definitely die. But Rambo refused, saying he is only here for one mission to set Troutman and his unit free. Any other mission would be unacceptable. Masood then told Rambo that they had to part from each other, but he didn't have any bad feelings for Rambo. Rambo then asked Masakni to follow him to get to the Russian camp, but suddenly a child called Amir, fascinated by Rambo's bravery, asked to join him, but Rambo refused as it would be too risky for Amir. Rambo then followed Masakni's steps to get to the camp, but the first problem was the minefield that surrounds the camp. Rambo and Masakni were walking carefully through it, till they found Amir following them. Rambo quickly asked Amir to be careful and helped him to pass the mines. So now, they were too close to the camp. Immediately, Rambo and Masakni started to put bombs everywhere. Rambo then asked Amir and Masakni to stay outside and he will get inside the camp. Rambo get inside as no one could imagine that anyone would do it, and he ordered Masakni to keep putting bombs. Amir took the advantage as no one was watching him. So he entered the camp after Rambo. Rambo then went to the place where Troutman was. While he was cutting off the chains, a Russian soldier arrived, but Rambo killed him with his knife to keep things quiet. But another Russian soldier saw what happened, and just in seconds the room was full of Russian soldiers. Rambo then grabbed a gun and had to engage with the soldiers, but there were so many, and Rambo couldn't fight them all. But that was the time for his bombs to explode, giving him a chance to run away the place and escape. But another problem happened as Amir got injured, so he took him while he was running, and they all get to the underground holes. But the Russians saw what happened, so they followed Rambo and his 2 friends. But Rambo was smart enough to install another bomb in their way. He then took cover and get out of the water to shoot them, then get underwater again, leaving them thinking about the bullet's source. Eventually the bombs started to explode, killing the rest of the Russians, and blocking their way to give Rambo the chance to escape the place. In the meantime, Zain saw what happened and was so mad at his soldiers, asking them not to get back to the camp till they fing Rambo. Back again to Rambo, who get out of the water to find an Afghani soldier waiting for them, but the rest of Russians ambushed them and started to shoot towards Rambo. They killed the Afghani soldier by mistake. Rambo held a cannon and destroyed the whole building, killing all of the Russian soldiers, then took the horses and got away. Zain then went to Troutman's cells to torture him again, saying that he will get Rambo and kill him in front of the whole camp. Troutman then warned Zain not to trace Rambo, cause he won't live long if he did so. But Zain was so mad, so he started to punch Troutman. What Troutman didn't know is that Rambo is badly injured. He had wounds all over his body. He even had a piece of metal inside his stomach. Rambo's mission wasn't over as he still didn't save Troutman, so he asked the other Afghani people to leave him alone, cause he will have another attack on the camp. After they leave, Rambo started to heal his wounds and getting the metal out of his body. He was in much pain, but that never stopped Rambo from doing his mission. Rambo was hiding the whole night between the rocks, and in the morning he started to move towards the camp. The camp was mostly empty cause Zain and his soldiers went out to look for Rambo. That gave Rambo a great opportunity to get to the camp. He killed the soldier that was in front of Troutman's cells, then went to him, setting him free. Then he freed all of the other captives. But when they were on their way out, Zain forces just arrived to find out what Rambo did to their camp. The situation this time was different than Vietnam, as all the captives were at least fighters. Rambo then took the helicopter and flies out of the camp, but Zain didn't let it go and ordered all his soldiers to open their fire. The helicopter engineer was on fire, but Rambo didn't stop flying till he got away. He ordered everyone to start running as fast as they could, cause it was just a matter of time till the plane explodes. Rambo could save them all, and as he got Troutman with him, his mission was over. He then told Troutman that they will start moving towards the borders to get out of the whole country. The only way to the borders was through a high cliff, cliff, so both of them had to climb it all in the sunny weather. When they finally reached the top, Rambo spotted many Russians' helicopters searching for them, so he asked Troutman to hide as he will watch his back, and then Rambo took out his bow and the exploded arrow. Then he knocked one helicopter down. Zane then realized that Rambo is a great soldier, and he had the upper hand as he is on the top of the cliff, so he asked the soldiers to get out of the helicopters and look for him on their feet. Rambo and Troutman then were hiding in a cave, and Rambo was ready with his bow and arrows. While the Russian soldiers couldn't see him, Rambo started to haunt them one by one. Zane then, who found out that he is only losing his men, ordered the rest of his unit to retreat, and finally, Rambo and Troutman could get out of the cave safely. But what Rambo didn't know is that there was a Russian soldier who was still alive. He then started to attack Rambo, trying to kill him. Rambo tried his best to fight back, but due to the Russian huge body, Rambo failed even to check him. But finally, Rambo could find his knife and killed him, letting him hanging down the cave, causing a huge explosion. Now Rambo and Troutman was thinking they are safe now, so they started to move towards the borders again. They suddenly spotted the whole Russian army in Afghanistan coming to them. They had literally no chance to do anything. Zane then told them to surrender, and he would treat them as war captives, but if they refuse, he will kill them without any mercy. Rambo knew that this whole mission was not an official one, so if he surrendered, no one would ever come to help him. So he and his brave ex-commander started to fight. They were shooting their bullets knowing that would be their last day, but they chose to die without surrendering. The unfair battle was getting harder, till finally Zane spotted the Afghani gangs attacking them from behind. They also wanted to liberate their country. Then they had a fair battle, and you know what Rambo can do during battles like these. First of all, he took over a rifle and started to shoot, killing an enormous number of the Russians. Troutman also helped him by knocking down many soldiers. During the battle, Rambo noticed that the only way to win it is to destroy Zane's helicopter, so he immediately jumped into a tank, and as there was no ammo in it, he drove towards Zane's helicopter and crashed it, causing a huge explosion. Everyone thought that Rambo was killed, but shortly after, Rambo got out of the tank alive in one piece. After this battle, Rambo showed respect to all Afghani soldiers who bravely defended their land. Also, Amir asked him to stay in Afghanistan, as they are all now friends. But Rambo said that he can't stay here, as he wanted to get back to his friends in Thailand to help them again. Rambo Part 4, 2008. Rambo went back to Thailand where he found his happiness. He stayed there for many and many years. 20 years later, the world had changed, and violence became the new language. The news all over was focusing on Burma, where the military was using their powers to kill their own citizens. They started an extermination, burning people alive, using chemical weapons, which was unacceptable. That made a group call themselves the Koreans to start an evolution, but that only turned the army to be even more tough with them. They killed whoever stood in their way, abducted children to force them to join the army, even if they were just young boys. Far away in Thailand, Rambo was still there, fishing snakes out of water, then selling them in the market. Rambo, as usual, was so talented in following snake routes, getting so many of them, even the dangerous ones. One day, and with the help of a Thailand fisherman, he could get enough snakes to sell, so he went directly to the market with his own boat. There he saw people in the market playing with snakes, and he knew how dangerous these snakes were. So he asked them to stop what they are doing and put the snakes in the cages. Rambo then sold all that he got, but he saw some tourists talking to one of the Thai people. Rambo ignored it all as he didn't want any other trouble, so he was willing to get back to water to fish a copra, cause he would get paid well for selling it. One of the tourists then went to talk to Rambo, introducing himself as Michel. Michel asked Rambo to rent his boat, taking them to Burma. That shocked Rambo, who asked Michel why would a guy like him go to such a dangerous place. Michel then explained that this would be their 5th trip to Burma, as they are missionaries from the church, and they go to Burma to help people with food, books, and medicine. Rambo refused to help them, saying that all that they have won't change the situation in Burma. Even after Michel offered him a huge amount of money, Rambo still refused. After he turned Michel down, his fiancée Sarah tried her luck with Rambo, telling him that might be the last hope for poor people in Burma, and all they need is him riding them to Burma with his boat, cause he is the strongest fighters they know. Rambo, as an experienced soldier, told Sarah that all their good intentions won't help anyone there. The scene then changed to Burma, where the situation escalated. The soldiers were out of their minds. They were killing people only for fun, by setting a minefield and forcing people to run through it till they explode. Whoever can live was immediately shot and killed. Sarah knew about what was going on in Burma, so she went to Rambo's workshop where he was fixing a part of his boat. She asked him to help them. All they want is to help hopeless people. But again, Rambo turned her offer down. Back again to Burma, in a small small village called Papon, where the army invaded. The commander asked the whole village to immediately get out of their houses, as he will take children to join the army. People were so scared. Mothers were screaming as they didn't want their children to be abducted, but unfortunately, they had nothing to do with it. After a long rainy day, Rambo finally finished his work in the workshop. When he went out, he saw Sarah waiting for him. She asked him again to take them to Burma. This time, she begged him to. Rambo had a lot of questions. Why him? Why did she insist on taking him personally? Rambo told Sarah that she is wasting her life for nothing, cause the politics are so complicated. He then told Sarah about what happened with him after Vietnam War. He went to fight on the behalf of America, and when he went back, no one accepted him. That is why he lived far away in Thailand. All this advice didn't change Sarah's mind, so eventually Rambo accepted to take them on his boat. The mission was so clear. He will only drop them on the shore, and they will find their way back through the land. The next day, Rambo took them on his boat, where Michelle, who was the leader of this group, started his speech. Rambo didn't pay him any attention, as he didn't like him. Sarah then went to talk to Rambo, as she could tell he was lonely. But Michelle didn't like what she did, saying that Rambo is only their sailor, as he got paid for his trip. But Sarah told him that Rambo refused to take a penny. Sarah then asked Rambo to tell her more about himself, so he talked about his days in the U.S. Army, and how his life had changed after all what happened. No wonder why Sarah was asking all of these questions, as she is a teacher. Michelle then went to ask Rambo how far they are now from Burma, but Rambo asked him to get back to his place, and when they will be close, he will tell him. Suddenly, Rambo spotted a pirate boat on their way, so he asked all of the U.S. citizens with him to bend over, and not to let these pirates see them. Michelle then told Rambo that he would pay them any money they want, but Rambo asked him to shut up, and not to do anything stupid. The pirates then started to shoot towards Rambo's boat, so he surrendered, raising his hands. The pirates came closer to his boat. Once they saw Sarah, their leader asked Rambo to let him take her, and he would let him go. Rambo refused to give him Sarah. That definitely made the pirate angry, but just before he thinks of anything, Rambo got his gun out and quickly killed them all. After this quick battle, Michelle was so upset, saying that Rambo shouldn't kill anyone. Rambo didn't accept that blame, telling Michelle that Thessa's pirates wanted to rape his fiancée. That is why he killed them all. Upon knowing this, Michelle was so scared and asked Rambo to take them back to Thailand, but Sarah refused the idea, saying that they are almost there, so Rambo accepted to drop them at Burma's shore. The next day, Rambo could finally reach the shore, dropping all of them. Before he got back, Sarah gave him a gift, and Michelle asked him to leave cause his mission is over. On his way back to Thailand, Rambo spotted an empty boat. He then got memories of what the army did to the poor citizens, so he attacked the boat, setting fire to it before jumping out of the boat and leaving it. Back again to Burma, where Sarah and her colleagues finally could reach. The U.S. group started to help people, giving them medicine and food. They finally could get some hope, but that didn't last for too long, as the Burmese military started to attack the whole village, making a huge chaos in the whole village, killing anyone who tried to stand in their way. They then started to kidnap children. Sarah and her colleagues started to escape, not knowing where to go. Sarah could see the army getting Michelle and her friends, but she kept running, hoping that she would escape. But eventually she fell to the ground and the soldiers could get her easily. Days later, Rambo was sleeping in his place, having nightmares about what happened to him when he was a soldier. Suddenly he woke up on a stranger calling his name. Due to the rain, Rambo didn't know who that guy was. He was definitely an American based on his accent. The stranger told him he is March, the priest of Michelle's church. He told Rambo that his people went to Burma 10 days ago, but then there was no news about all of them. Rambo asked March to visit the embassy, as he isn't willing to get back to Burma, but March said that he tried this solution and they refused to help him. Archer only wanted Rambo to take the soldiers he got again to the Burmese shore. Rambo only accepted cause he was thinking about Sarah. The next day, and for the second time in the same month, the Rambo was sailing to the Burmese shore with the soldiers. These soldiers were mercenaries, only fighting to get money, and of course Rambo didn't like that concept. On their way to Burma, the mercenaries leader was saying he is only here to pay his divorce fees, otherwise he would never come to such places. He then went to show off in front of Rambo, saying he is the strongest is why they always ask for his service. Rambo didn't answer any of them. He just noticed that they are all bullying a soldier, calling him a schoolboy. Meanwhile, Sarah was in the Burmese camp. She was shouting at the Burmese soldiers, asking them to kill her. She lost any hope to get rescued. On the other hand, Rambo finally reached the shore, without any troubles with the Burmese pirates this time. The soldiers got out of the boat to start their mission, and Rambo too got out to join them. But the leader asked him to stay where he was on the shore. He didn't respect Rambo, thinking he is only a sailor who never gets involved in battles. The leader then met the Burmese guide, asking him about where the camp is. He then knew that the camp was guarded by more than 100 soldiers. That shocked the leader, who wasn't ready for all these soldiers. He then set the plan, asking all his soldiers to get to the camp without engaging with the Burmese soldiers, setting the captives free, then escaping back to the shore again, where they would find Rambo. They then started to follow their guide through the country, but they were taken back by the view. Rivers of blood, dead bodies without heads. The Burmese army were killing their own people without any mercy. The guide then asked them to be careful, cause there is many landmines that is used to kill the Burmese people. Indigo then had a question. What the hell they are doing here? After all what he saw, he was so sure the Burmese army killed Michel and his group. The leader asked him to stay quiet and they will juts. Check the camp to see what happened. Suddenly, the Burmese military arrived, so the leader asked all of them to hide and not to do anything. So they followed his orders and all of them held their fire watching the army. The Burmese army then let some of Burmese people run away, throwing mines all over the place. Then they started shooting in the air to force them run. The frightened citizens started running, and when they reached the other end, they shot them all. Suddenly, and out of nowhere, Rambo arrived and started killing the soldiers using his bow and arrows. Rambo killed them all, letting the citizens to run away. TG leader couldn't believe what just happened. He was still in shock. How could the army be that brutal? And how could Rambo be that strong? Later, he asked Rambo to take him back to Thailand, and he will report that he found Michel and the others dead. Just before he moved, Rambo threatened him with his bow, saying he would kill him if he retreated now. So the leader didn't have any other options but to follow Rambo's orders. They then get into a car that dropped them near the camp, and the schoolboy started to kill the officers, letting Rambo get into the camp. After quick search, Rambo could reach one of the captives. So he asked him about Sarah. The guy told him she is in a pig's cage. In the meantime, the Burmese army soldiers were having a party as they were harassing the girls who danced. One of these soldiers took a girl away to rape her, but fortunately, Indigo saw what happened and followed her. The soldier started to hit her hard as she was trying to escape. Finally, she got under a barrier where she found Indigo, and when the officer tried to catch her, Indigo killed him. The other sniper was killing the rest of the Burmese soldiers, and no one could know any of what Rambo's soldiers do, as they were busy with the party. Rambo stayed focused on his mission and hid from the soldiers who were everywhere, till he finally could see Sarah. A soldier took her from her cage to his own place as he wanted to rape her. So Rambo was ready to get inside and save Sarah. But the leader showed up telling Rambo that they set all of Michelle's group free except for one girl, and he wanted to leave before the Burmese army found out. Rambo refused, telling him he wouldn't leave till he got Sarah. Indigo also agreed to this Olan, but the leader said that this is his mission, and he is the one who gives orders. The leader then punched Indigo, saying that he is his leader, and gathered all of his soldiers and left the place, leaving Rambo alone. But Rambo went quickly and killed the soldier, setting Sarah free. Unfortunately, when he tried to escape the place, the party was over, so he had to hide with Sarah till they can get out of the camp. But two Burmese soldiers spotted him, and before doing anything, the schoolboy who refused to escape with the leader killed them both, and the three of them ran away out of the camp. Rambo told them they need to reach the shore before the sunrise, otherwise they will be spotted easily, but they wouldn't be able to do it cause Sarah injured her feet during the escape, so Rambo started to treat her. On the other hand, in the camp, the soldiers found out what happened. They told their commander about the great escape, so he asked them all to get whoever escaped back, as they wouldn't be so far. Meanwhile, Sarah was only concerned about Michelle. She asked Rambo if he could make it, so he told her that he is fine and with the leader. The leader was with his group on their way to the shore. Only then he stepped on a landmine, which exploded, cutting his leg. Once the Burmese soldiers heard it, they knew that the Americans were there, so the whole unit headed to the mine location. That gave Rambo some time to think of his next step, but he heard dogs barking and he knew that they were following Sarah. So he took a piece of her clothes and asked the schoolboy to escape with her. Then he took some explosives and started to run away to give Sarah the chance to reach the shore. Rambo covered the bombs with a piece of cloth and started to run as fast as he could. The soldiers weren't that smart to get out of that ambush, as they followed their dogs to the bombs, where they all were killed due to the great explosion. The schoolboy reached a high land to have a look, but he was shocked when he saw the Burmese soldiers torturing the leader and his soldiers. He couldn't shoot as there was a tank near to him, and if he shoot, they would know his location, then kill him. Everyone thought this was the end, but as usual they forgot about Rambo. Rambo suddenly showed up out of nowhere again. He then slaughtered one soldier, then opened the fire to kill anyone who tried to stop him. Upon seeing what happened, the schoolboy started to shoot, and the soldiers also helped him to kill the Burmese soldiers. Even the leader who lost his leg started to fight, killing the soldier who tortured him. Michelle, who didn't like the blood in the past, held a rock and started to punch and kill the Burmese soldiers too. Eventually, the Koreans group arrived to fight beside Rambo and to take their revenge, so they gave the upper hand to Rambo's friends. The battle then was over, as they could beat the Burmese army, and Rambo was walking away, looking at Sarah, who was talking to Michelle. He knew that he saved another pure soul such as Sarah. Then he left the place and got back to Thailand, where he found people there wrote his name on the street billboard for all the good things he'd done. Rambo Part 5, the last part, Last Blood 2019. After all these years living out of the US due to what happened after the war, when people and the police bullied Rambo, he is now mature enough to get back to his homeland. Things are now completely different. Rambo is helping the police officers in their missions, as he is an experienced fighter who accomplished many dangerous missions. They were a new generation, not like Teasel from Part 1. That gave Rambo the chance to live in Arizona again. One day, a huge tornado struck Arizona, damaging almost everything. So Rambo rushed to help the police officers on his horse to save people. Rambo then went to help Jimmy's family getting out of the place, but unfortunately Jimmy's wife was already dead. So Rambo asked Jimmy to join him quickly. Jimmy was shocked knowing that his wife died. He didn't believe Rambo saying he will get back to check on his wife again. Not listening to Rambo's advice, Jimmy went back to his dead wife. So Rambo decided to save Jimmy's sister. Minutes later, the tornado struck again and hit it even harder than the first time. And of course that cost Jimmy his life. Rambo then went back home to rest his horse. Then he started to have a look on his house, with many questions inside his head. How strange time is. One of the greatest warriors all over the world is now in a bad conditions, taking painkillers trying to forget his soul's pain. Rambo went to his basement to check on his weapons. He was still having bad memories from the past, but he is now a different person who doesn't want to get involved in any trouble. The next day, Rambo was playing with his horse. Then he went to visit his neighbor Maria and her daughter Gabriella. Maria offered him a breakfast, and they were talking about Gabriella's future, as her mother wanted her daughter to join the college. Minutes later, Gabriella came in. She was worried about Arizona's tornado, but Rambo said he did all he can even if it wasn't enough. Rambo then gave Gabriella a knife as a gift to cheer her up, but asked her not to use it to harm anyone. It only for self-defense. After accepting his gift, Gabriella wanted to get out to sleep over at her friend's Antonella place. Cause Antonella will have a party there, and then Gabriella can meet the other college students. Rambo didn't think that was a great idea. He offered his home to have the party as he is living alone. But Gabriella said that her friends are always afraid of Rambo. To be honest, they should be. Rambo then insisted to have the party, so Gabriella told her friends about this offer. They finally accepted and went to Rambo's place. And surprisingly, they all spent a great time in the place. After the party was over, Rambo went to check over Gabriella, as he wanted her feedback. Gabriella was happy, but she had another topic that she wanted to discuss with Rambo. Gabriella told Rambo that she wanted to visit Mexico, cause her friend Giselle saw her father there. Rambo refused the whole idea, telling her that her father ain't a good person, as he left her and her mother and never get back to them. Gabriella didn't buy it and wanted to meet her father. So Rambo told her that Mexico isn't a safe country for a girl like her, so she can't travel. Gabriella was so mad hearing that, saying that Rambo himself traveled when he was 17 to join the war, so he doesn't have the right to decide whether she travel or not. Rambo said he only traveled to join the army, and that is a totally different story. And he only want to stop Gabriella cause he love her as his daughter. Even after all this argument, Gabriella still wants to meet her father. So the next day she picked up a fight with her mother cause she was still bringing the same topic. And when Rambo and Maria convinced her not to think about it ever again, Gabriella pretended not to think again and left the home saying she would visit her friend Antonella. In fact, she was on her way to Mexico to meet her father, not thinking about the consequences. As Mexico shares the borders with America, Gabriella could easily get to Giselle. She was terrified of the view, as people there looked dangerous. But Gabriella met Giselle and knew her father's address, so she went to meet him. Once she knocked on the door, her stepmother opened it, asking who the hell she was. But Gabriella introduced herself as Manuel's daughter. She then entered the house to meet Manuel, asking him why he abandoned his family. But the answer shocked her. Manuel said that he never liked his daughter nor Maria, and that wasn't the life he wanted. So he left the whole country and got himself a new life. Gabriella then quickly went out of the house. taken back by the fact that her father never loved her. So she got in her car to get back home again. But Jizzle told her that she is in denial and will break down soon, so she suggested to party at any place to cheer her friend up. Gabriella then accepted the offer as she was still shocked by her father's answer. And without knowing how risky that was, she went to a nightclub with Jizzle. It was a toxic environment, anyone could tell. People started to annoy Gabriella, who decided to only have one drink and leave immediately. But she didn't notice that one guy put a drug in her drink, so she fainted once drink it. Hours later, Gabriella then woke up to find herself in a room with Miguel and Victor, who are working in human trafficking. The next day, Maria was so worried about her daughter. She then called Antonella, who said that she didn't meet Gabriella. Maria then rushed to tell Rambo, who could get what happened, and asked for Manuel's address. Rambo then went to Mexico to meet Manuel, who said that Gabriella came to see him the day before, but he didn't know anything more. So Rambo decided to pay Giselle a visit as Gabriella mentioned her before. Meanwhile, Gabriella was with the other kidnapped girls. As Victor and Miguel were shouting at them, cause one girl tried to escape. Miguel told them that he won't hesitate to kill any of them if they tried any such thing again. In the meantime, Rambo finally got to Jizzle to follow Gabriella's steps, asking her about Gabriella. In the beginning, she lied to Rambo, saying she didn't know where she was going after meeting Manuel. But Rambo noticed Gabriella's bracelet with her, so he got out his knife, asking her to tell the truth. Jizzle was taken back by this, and she took Rambo to the nightclub where Gabriella was kidnapped. Rambo then asked her to introduce him to the broker who uses the girls. So she did exactly as he asked her to do. Rambo spotted the broker with a girl taking her outside the place, so he went after him and caught him by surprise. Of course, that sissy broker couldn't fight Rambo, who badly wounded him with his knife, asking him about Gabriella. The broker couldn't fight back and told him the place where Miguel and Victor were. On his way to the place, the whole gang was following him, waiting for the next time to attack Rambo. Rambo didn't pay them any attention. He fought against the Vietnamese, Thai, and Burmese army, so amateur gangs like this weren't a big deal to him. Meanwhile, people arrived to take the girls as they will work as hookers. Gabriella started to cry and wanted to get out of the place, but that was impossible. On the other hand, Rambo gave himself in to the gang, claiming that he doesn't want any trouble and just want to meet Miguel and Victor. The whole gang was making fun of Rambo, saying that isn't how things work here. But anyway, they took him to Miguel. Miguel was shocked to see an old American guy coming after a girl, so he asked his men to look at Rambo's pockets. They found a gun and a knife, so they got rid of both of them before torturing Rambo, who was so quiet and didn't even fight back. He just wanted to take Gabriella back to her mother and wanted to do it the easy way. During this, Miguel looked at Rambo's ID, so they kept laughing at him as an ex-soldier who is being tortured. That wasn't enough for Miguel, who asked Victor to hit Rambo with a knife, and he did it without even thinking. Miguel then took Gabriella's picture and went to look for her. Once he got to her cell, he drugged her. Then he hurted her face with a knife. Rambo had got enough now, as these losers were making fun of him, but he couldn't even move. Fortunately, a girl named Carmen saw him badly injured, so she took him back to her place where she brought him a doctor to treat his wounds. The doctor told Carmen that Rambo had a concussion and warned her not to bother him. In the meantime, Miguel was giving Gabriella drugs every day till she got addicted to it, and that guaranteed that she would never escape the place. Back again to Rambo, who could finally wake up. In the beginning, he didn't remember where he was. Then he asked Carmen about this place and who she was. Carmen then told Rambo that she is a journalist who was trying to uncover the human trafficking trade in Mexico. She added that 2 years ago, the same gang kidnapped her sister. 2 days later, she found her dead due to an overdose. Rambo then knew how dangerous things might be, so he decided to leave Carmen's place to get Gabriella, even after what Carmen said about this gang. Rambo then went to the place where the girls were used at, introducing himself as a customer. Once they let him in, Rambo showed them how to fight. He remembered the old days and started to punch them and kick them till he finished them all. Rambo then started to look for Gabriella till he could find her, but he couldn't believe how bad they treated her. Her face was hurt. Her arms were badly injured cause of the drug injections. Rambo then took her to his car and started to drive back home. Gabriella was really sick and started to cry, but Rambo asked her to be strong and remember the good old days when they both used to ride horses. Rambo was treating Gabriella as if she was his own daughter, as he couldn't have any son wasting his whole life fighting enemies. Rambo then noticed that Gabriella became weaker, and when he tried to talk to her again, she was dead cause of the drugs. Rambo, the strong, serious soldier, broke down at this moment. He couldn't hold his tears and get into a breakdown. All he could do is to get back to America, where he met Maria. In the beginning, Maria thought that Rambo saved her daughter, but she got shocked to see her daughter's body. Rambo then buried Gabriella next to his house, cause he wanted to visit her regularly. Maria couldn't move on after all what happened, cause Gabriella was all she had in this life, so she decided to move from Arizona to find another place. Rambo then was alone for the first time in the US, thinking about all what happened. He saw his daughter in Gabriella and loved her so much, but now she is gone. Rambo couldn't resist his nature and immediately thought about revenge. He went to his basement to check his weapons, getting all of it back again. Rambo started to maintain all of the guns, bombs, and of course his beloved bow and arrows. He then started to remember Miguel Place, draw it down to get himself a plan. He then gathered all these weapons that was enough to destroy a country, and in a matter of hours, he was back to Mexico again. First of all, Rambo went to check on Carmen. He thanked her for all what she did to him, but he sadly told her about what happened to Gabriella. She knew then what was Rambo willing to do, so she warned him again not to get involved in these troubles. Rambo said that he is old and had seen enough in this life, and he wouldn't be happy to live knowing that all these girls were killed for nothing. Rambo was so keen on revenge, so he drove back to Miguel's place. Once he got inside, he got his knife, and anyone tried to stop him had been killed in just seconds. Victor didn't like what happened, so he decided to fight Rambo. But as you can guess, Rambo killed him, cut his neck off, and threw it to the street dogs. Meanwhile, Miguel knew what happened to his brother, so he rushed to his place to see what happened. He was really surprised to see his necklace brother and all his men dead. On the other hand, Rambo went back to his place, as he now knew that he got himself a war, so he started to prepare his basement. And now he is more dangerous than any time before, cause now he was ready to die. Miguel then gathered all his gang and went to America. He totally underestimated Rambo, asking his men to finish the old man. Rambo ambushed them with the landmines and destroyed 2 of their cars, but the rest of the gang was still alive. They then entered the basement, and that was a big mistake. Rambo was hiding inside, and before they even knew where they are, Rambo were coming out of nowhere and killing them with his knife. Rambo was killing them without mercy, using all the weapons he had in his life. Of course, the Mexican gang wasn't ready to this ambush, so Miguel could tell that his men won't be good enough to beat Rambo, who kept killing them all one by one, thinking about the girls they killed and all what they did in Mexico. After finishing the whole gang, Rambo, who was covered by Mexican blood, talked to Miguel on the radio, telling him that he is the only Onar who left. Miguel had to fight Rambo alone, so he had to get inside that basement. Surprisingly, that was another ambush, and the whole place was full of mines, and exploded with Miguel inside, but somehow Miguel was still alive. So he got out of the basement, thinking he got away of Rambo. But Rambo was ready for a second round, and once he spotted Miguel, Rambo shot 4 arrows that finished Miguel, but Miguel refused to die, just like this, and tried to keep going to kill Rambo. Rambo in this particular moment started to think about everything Miguel done, and about Gabriella and all the other girls. That made Rambo even stronger, and once Miguel could reach Rambo, he stabbed him with his knife, cutting his chest all the way down without any mercy. After killing that pig, Rambo had his memories, starting by Vietnam, where he was a young soldier, just fighting for his country. Then all what happened later. Rambo, the great warrior, then started to think of everyone he loses, but now he was relieved, knowing he took their revenge. And just like that, the story of the great soldier, warrior, comes to an end, after an epic fights and wars. And that is the end.